Hello again. We're on to section 4 of the Touch of Frost blanket, and this part of the section is joining the squares that go round the border first of all before the final edge. Now in the pattern you will have been asked to make 52 of these little snowflake squares, 13 in each of 4 colours. That's the Stylecraft silver, the Stylecraft white, the hint of silver and the twinkle white. So we're going to do these in repeating order all the way round, and I'm starting with the silver, the Stylecraft silver. Now you're going to be using continuous join as you go, so that's what this little tutorial will be about today, and it's very similar in fact to the simple join as you go. The word continuous is the clue in the name. This time you won't be attaching each individual square one at a time. You'll be going around the squares in a kind of, how would you describe it, a sort of roundabout route, if you like, starting from one and meandering round them all until you get back to the beginning and then finishing it off. Now that sounds a bit vague, but you'll soon see what I mean. I'm using the James Seabrett Twinkle in the gold colour for the join, and as usual I'm using half trebles as opposed to treble stitches. That's half double in US terms. Make sure first of all that your blanket is on the front. This is my little sample that I've been working on, so it may not look exactly like the blanket, but this is the sample from the previous section, and I've made sure that the stitch marker is showing uppermost, so we're okay. This is the front of the blanket. I've turned the square so that the very last round, round 3, is on the reverse, and that's the way I'm going to be attaching it to the blanket, in fact all of the squares. Now to start with, you just need to do exactly as you did when you were making the simple join as you go. You would attach your yarn in a corner and make half of that corner, chain 2 half trebles, 3 half trebles in each of the 3 spaces up the side of the square. Start the next corner but stop after the first group of 3 half trebles, and then slip stitch into the corner of the blanket, and this is where it starts to be joined. So just slip stitch into that corner. You can see I'm working on a table, and I quite like having a table to work on when I'm making a join like this, but it's not essential, but it's easy, it makes it easier to see where you're going. So there's that square, that corner complete. And you continue along the edge of the blanket with a slip stitch and 3 half trebles in the next space. This is exactly the same. In fact, this part is the same as the simple join as you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work along here, do my half, when I get to the corner, do half of the corner, 3 half trebles, slip stitch into the space on the blanket, and then come down this side of the square. And at this point I'm going to stop. I'm not going to continue around the bottom because that would be simple join as you go. I'm going to stop there. So what I'm going to do is stop the video just now and come back when I've got to this point. So I have worked round, as you can see, 3 sides of this silver square, and I've stopped when I've done half of the corner, which is the bottom left corner, and I'm not going to work at this point along the bottom because I want to now bring in my second square and start to join it to this square, and then it will join to the blanket, and then I'll come down this side and I'll bring in the next square. So to join your second square, just yarn over and pick up the second square, put your yarn into the corner and make a half treble stitch, and continue and make 2 more half trebles in that corner of the second square. Just move this a little. Now if I turn that round, you can see that it is matching the half of the corner of the silver square, and you're going to work up this square, so you want to go into the next space on the silver square and do your slip stitch just as usual, yarn over and make your 3 half trebles in the second square. You can flip the blanket round so that you're working side to side. I'm just going to keep on like this just now because of the filming, and just work up the side. Now I'm going to take you up the side of the square and show you what happens at the top when you get to the blanket, and then I'll continue and show you the 2 squares joined eventually. So that is three half trebles into this last space before the corner. Right, and now you want to put your 3 half trebles into the corner of the second square, and then all you need to do is borrow that space in the blanket where the previous square was attached and put a slip stitch in there, and then continue with your 3 half trebles. Really simple. And then slip stitch into the blanket and so on, and you'll work along here and down, and then pick up your 3rd square and do exactly the same thing, working up the side, along and down. And you would just do that all the way round the blanket until you come back to this point here, and at this point you will have, well, let me push this here, you will have worked all the way down this side, and your last square will go on there. And I'm going to try to show you that without going all the way around my sample, so I shall finish off my square 2, and then I'll see you hopefully when I'm back at this point to let you see what happens. So I'm back, and let's just say I've cheated a little because I haven't worked all the way around my sample as you will be doing with your 52 squares going around the blanket. I'm just working with my 4 squares, so I made the 2, and I would have continued along and all the way round, up round the top and down, but let's just, for the sake of it, let's pretend that I'm not going to show you the top part of the blanket of my sample, so it kind of looks like I have gone all the way round and I'm back. So this is that was the 1st square. Call this one the 52nd square, the very last one to be joined. So, you know, as normal, I would have come along here and down here, and then started to join the white sparkly one, and I've got to this point with my joining. So I'm just going to show you what happens when you get to the bottom of the last square. Now, when you've got a join like this where there are 2 squares already there, so basically the corners of the blankets, you can do what you did with the simple join as you go and just slip stitch into the diagonal space from your square that you're working on. Now I'm going to turn this round and finish off coming down here. So I've got the second half of this corner to make first of all. I have to say while I'm doing this that I'm up in my studio, which is built in the eaves of my cottage, and the cottage is on a farm, and we're in the summertime, and we have one of these very rare days in a Scottish summer, certainly on the east coast of Scotland, where it's very hot. So I started making this video with all the windows closed to try and block out the summer noises, but I've had to open the window, it's just got so hot. So you will hear the occasional tractor, the occasional probably strimmer, somebody's clearing the sides of the fields. There are children, because this farm has strawberries and people are picking strawberries, so it's all a little bit noisy out there, but it's either that or I expire from the heat. So I'm just going to persevere with the open windows. And I've come down this side of the last square, 3, and I've got my slip stitch and I'm at the corner. And here we go, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to slip stitch to the corner of the previous square, like that, and I'm going to, but my job now is to finish off, because as you can see there's nothing edging the squares on the outside edge of all of the squares going right round the blanket. So my job now is to start and work this way and work all the way round, putting the edge, and that means that when I come back to this point, when I've gone all the way around the blanket and finish off, I'll have the one strand that I used to start with and one that I used to finish with, and that will only be 2 that you need to sew in. So I'm going to do this outside bit, I'm going to swing my blanket round and you can see what it looks like. And there's only, I mean, it's really straightforward. So I'm going to zip round this part, which is completing this corner, and then the 3 half trebles in each of the spaces. 3 half trebles, chain 2, 3 half trebles in this corner and down here, and I'm going to come back when I get to this point and explain what happens when we're going over the join. So I'll see you at that point. Right, I've worked round this last square and I've got to this point where I said I needed to show you something, and you'll see that in this corner and this corner you've only got your 3 half trebles. It's not a complete corner. So what we want to do is finish these 2 corners off, and there's a bit of a jump from working from here to here. So what I'm going to show is a neat way of getting over this travelling bit from here to here, and then you can just continue and just do what I'm doing in this join every time you come across a join between 2 squares. Now don't confuse this with the point where you're doing the treble 1, treble 2 together, treble 1 when you were doing the granny square rounds. That's not the point you're at, because this is still 2 squares that need to be finished off. So what you do is yarn over, make your first 3 half treble stitches in the first corner, 1, 2, 3, and now we have to get to this corner. So what I suggest you do is you chain 1 and then pull apart the join and find that big space there and just slip stitch into that. That's basically all that's happening, is that you're traveling your yarn along. Chain one again, and you see you're much nearer to this corner now, so you can make your 3 half trebles to finish off the corner. And you see how nice and neat that looks when you've joined the 2 squares together. So you'll continue to work along here. I don't have anything to work against now because I've only had 4 squares. So you will work all the way around the outside of the blanket. When you come to the top corner of the blanket, you'll just treat it the same way with the 3 half trebles, chain 2 3 half trebles, and all the way along until you come back to this point, and you will have the last 3 trebles to fit into this corner, and then you can just slip stitch into the corner of that one to finish off, and that's it. So that is the continuous join as you go. I apologize for the fact that I haven't got a blanket and I haven't got 52 squares to show you, but hopefully the 4 squares that I've done will let you see how it's made, and you can also of course refer to the pattern. Bye for now.